Good morning. It is Wednesday. I cannot believe we're in July 2nd. Welcome, everyone. We're doing Black Forest from Spilt Milk by Courtney Zoffness. So, any opening statements about this chapter? And then I'll start. When Arthur and I met my husband junior year abroad in Israel. We came through Europe on our way home, and we went through Germany. And we were on a train. And I was reading Herman Wouk's Winds of War, who everyone in this group knows that book. And I would have like heart palpitations, because they would come through passport. And so that part was frightening. And then when you're in Germany, you just look at the people. I did. You look at the people and say, huh. First of all, this was in 1979. So that's only 30 years after the war. Now.
And you're young.
Right.
Oh, my gosh.
I was thinking about you, Sue, the whole time because you were in Germany.
I was in Germany in 1962.
Oh my gosh.
So how was it?
Scary. Especially when these business associates, at the time, my husband was in the Air Force. And I remember somebody years later when we were there again saying to me, Mrs. Velick, do you have any relatives in Germany? I thought,
not anymore.
Are you crazy? I wanted to say, no, thank God, because if I did, they'd all be dead. I was amazed. But when my husband was in the Air Force, and then he thought he was being funny, he went outside of our hotel room and he came back and knocked on the door and says, Juden Rasen.
Oh,
as a joke to me.
Yeah, that's not funny.
It wasn't funny. But he thought he was, but it was, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable to be there at that
time. Yeah.
It was less, what was it, 17 years after the war?
Did you visit any of the concentration camps?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Went to Dachau.
Yeah.
Went to, no, I haven't.
That's in Poland.
That's in Poland.
So
I haven't been to Auschwitz,
right.
But I've been to.
Elaine, I'm going to get to
I've been to 3 concentration camps.
And quickly.
Sachsenhausen, Dachau, and.
I'd have to think of.
The one near Berlin.
Ernesto just said he's sorry. He meant to bring it.
It's,
yes.
It's not easy being there.
No. Just a quick history, because I've studied a lot about the Holocaust. They put the death camps in Poland, Auschwitz, Treblinka, all the ones that we've heard of. So they were concentration camps in Germany, and that was done, with intention and on purpose. Elaine.
Okay, I'm looking at the story with a different mind. And I think, talking about Lynn, it's a story of what we perceive. And Sue really said it. And you said it. You were frightened. You probably had no reason to be frightened except your mind tells you that Germany was something. And I think that's the story. And I'm not catching the word where you transpose something into something else.
Personification.
Yeah. Okay. It's fine. So personification. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And I think we do that in our lives. And I think this story is a metaphor for how we think and what we perceive to be and what actually is. She's talking about, and I've been in Germany and I didn't want to go. And my travel agent talked us into going. And yes, I agree with you. The German accent, and my name is Greenberg.
Yeah.
And when they said it, I my hair stood up on my arm. But that was in me, not in them. And I think that that's a story of how taking it another step further, how we look at the world through our own eyes and perceive what is wrong and what is right. And I bet if we ask people here, oh, I'm sorry, I'm
All right.
sorry,
I have Merle and then Lynn. Merle, go ahead.
sorry.
And then Roberta.
Me too.
Right from the beginning of the story,
Oh.
she mentions,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
is it okay?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Right from the beginning of the story, she mentioned, she said to her grandmother, I'm going to Germany. And she was waiting for a reaction. And her grandmother just had no words. She just threw her hands up. And when she got to Germany, all she saw was the superficial, the beauty of it. She looked at things in Germany and she said, this is adorable. People riding on bikes and flower pots in all the windows. And all she saw was the superficial. And I felt like she had herself kind of brainwashed in the opposite way that this is beautiful. And something beautiful can be dangerous too.
Yeah.
But
Right.
she hadn't her mind made up before she ever got there. I'm going to love this place.
Exactly. Okay, Lynn, Roberta, Judy, and Terry.
I thought the story was totally ironic, in the sense that she was praising this, what Merle is saying. She was idealizing Germany when we know that that was not the case. And I think the title of the story, the idea of a forest, a black forest,
That's its name.
yeah. Well, but she uses that metaphorically as well as having this as that's her focus, because I think at the end, when she stumbles on the little plaques, you know, if you've been there, you know what those are all about. All of a sudden, reality hits her in the foot, and she realizes that what's underneath this gilded picture she has of Germany is really a lot of brass.
Yeah.
Or iron or whatever is.
Yeah.
Underneath.
Roberta, Judy, and then Terry. Roberta, go ahead.
We were in Theresienstadt and we were guided by a former inmate there. And what surprised me and reminded me so much of her experience was how dare these people, the flowers in the window box and the children riding bicycles, how dare they go on and live happily? Look where they're at and their memory. And my shock was that they could do that. They could live next to such horror and not think twice about it. But I came away thinking the message, the same as the message in the chapter, was that life goes on. And regardless of your past or experience or your trauma, life goes on. And you have to.
Great message. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what this reminded me of. And I think the fact that the references to the Black Forest were frequent was to keep that memory alive for her. Yes, this is the present and life goes on, but don't forget the past. And that's what the Black Forest was to her.
All right. Judy. Wait,
You're on.
I got you. Go ahead.
Thanks. I had a really hard time with this story. And frankly, it made me feel this is how everyone outside of the United States must feel about us now. How can we?
Tell us more.
Okay, we have prisons now inside of our country We have people who are happy about it. We have people who are unhappy about it. But there are people, I mean, I'm struggling with this. I'm struggling with what's happening with our politics. And to me, we have become Germany.
Very interesting, very interesting.
In the Nazi era. So I had a hard time.
We're lucky Alice isn't here to get us. But I can see what you mean. Terry and then Lynn again.
Well, I just felt through the whole story. She kept saying, why wouldn't I want to live here? Why wouldn't I want to live here? She kept almost convincing herself. Now, why would I want to live in New York where there are pigeons and rats? You know, this is so idyllic. It's Eden. You know, she just kept saying that. And it felt as though when Lynn talked about the two plaques, almost as though she got to that point and then, oh, I forgot. Yes, that's here.
Right,
This is what
that's
happened
right.
before.
Right.
And the story sort of ends. It doesn't really go into it. It was kind of a nondescript the way it ended. And she said at the very end, get to the page, I sprint the rest of the way home, arrive winded. In the morning, the streets are dry. I mean, she does it, you know, after saying, I rub my heel on the brass to shine it and feel a prickle of impending weather, moisture in the air. I mean, what is she really saying? I mean, it's almost like she found this and it kind of had to sink in. And then she kind of just, that was it. I mean, she didn't go into it after that.
Lynn, Terry, Sue.
Frankly, I
Roberta.
thought, Judy, I thought this was the weakest of the stories that we've
So far.
read. So far. I've loved the others. I think, you know, what I've loved about the stories is that we've taken them out of their context and applied them to our experiences in every day. They were easy to do this. This was many times when you have this epiphany about something, it makes a dramatic impact on your life. I don't see an impact.
It's just
I
like,
go, now I realize.
Right.
So it's like one, you know, we're tracking her life. It's her memoir. And this was one experience she had. But too often, I think what she's saying in here is that we have these experiences that are so meaningful to us and we don't take the time to assimilate them into our mind and say, okay, how does this affect me?
Yeah.
You know,
Another good
there's
point.
there's nothing here to show that.
Right, Elaine, and then Sue.
Okay, in
Roberta and
answer
Merle.
to Terry, I think what she's saying is, yes, this impacted me, but life goes on. I moved back to New York and we all live our lives. And I think that's what she is saying.
Roberta said.
However, she was thinking of actually moving.
Right, but you know what? We all do that. We go somewhere and it's wonderful and fabulous and you're having on vacation and then you come back to
Reality.
your reality. Okay, and I think one of the things, and I agree with Lynn that this was a weak story, but it's someone's life. And that's what we have to realize, that it goes on and not always is the answer that we want.
Sue.
Okay, so as you all know, I was there very early on after the war.
How long? How many years?
17.
No. How long were you in Germany?
How long was I? Oh, I was there so many times, I can't even,
Right.
I mean, I've been through the entire country,
Right. But like, were you there 2 years, 3 years?
but I was never there for 2 or 3 years straight, no. But I was there for, say 10 days, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we did not have professional guides except.
Thank you, Ernesto. Do you want me to turn the air conditioner off when I'm done?
I can turn it off.
Okay. Good answer.
Not, but in reading this, first of all, we have to remember this is a true story,
Yeah.
because these are her memories.
Yeah.
And somehow this story made me lose some respect for her. Yes, but
Well, she's got a half a book to get it back.
but I couldn't help myself
Yeah.
because of all the times I've been there under various and different circumstances. The first time was when my husband was in the Air Force and he was sent there on temporary duty. And I went with him. And it was really pretty awful. I mean, you could see a lot of the war wounded. There were people with, missing a part of a leg. All over the streets, you could see it. There was still a lot of war damage in the buildings and everything. And then I have to say, recently, I was there 7 years ago. And the difference was incredible. I have pictures that I could show you guys. It's just incredible, the memories now that they have, admitted to their horrible past, and they have all kinds of memorials
Yes.
to the Jews along the railroad tracks, I have all these pictures that I took, and it's just incredible, the change from what it had been. But now I'm worried about today, what's going on, and
There or here?
both,
Here.
both. But it's just, I have to say, this chapter bothered me a lot.
I have Roberta, Merle, Barb, and Lynn. Roberta, go.
I felt, well, listening to everyone, I feel everyone is being so critical and hard on her for this chapter. And I absolutely disagree. I thought, because I've been to Germany, not stayed, but through and traveled in parts of it. But I felt the Black Forest had more impact on her. So I looked it up, and I love what I found, the legend of the Black Forest. It says, legends tell of lost souls who roam the woods, ephemeral figures seeking resolution and redemption.
Okay.
And I think that sums up for me why she included, well, where'd everybody go?
So we're still here. I just put up a picture of the Black Forest. Sorry. Keep talking, Roberta, keep talking. We're still here.
Just feel that it solidified for me why she chose the title of the chapter, why
very
she
interesting.
included the chapter, what her message, what she wants the reader to think about, what she wants to leave with the reader. I absolutely disagree with everyone's
Okay.
critical analysis. Just
As well you can. All right,
No.
Merle. What? Merle, Barb, then Lynn. Merle.
Okay, reading this story reminded me of, went to a wedding in Mobile, Alabama once, which is very similar to New Orleans, and everything's beautiful, and they have theater and opera, and they had a gorgeous museum, a historical museum about the Civil War. But as you walk along the streets, there are plaques saying, this is where the slave market used to be. This is where slaves were sold. Different little paths along the way that had these plaques. And I thought it was similar to that. But I also saw a metaphor in here that kind of defends her a little bit. She says, one learns quickly in the federal state of Baden-Württemberg to travel with protection. And then she lists a bunch of ordinary things like sunscreen, umbrella, boots. But I think she's also talking about a kind of mental protection, a psychological
Interesting.
that when you're there, you try to forget what really happened and just concentrate on the beauty of the place. And I think that this one line made me have some real sympathy for what she was going through there. If she was going to work there and she had to be there for a while, at least protect herself from the thoughts of the past. So
Yeah.
that was a metaphor that I saw in the story.
Right, Barb.
As I was reading this and listening to the whole discussion here, it really reminded me of the movie, The Truman Show,
Oh,
where Jim Carrey is living in this bubble in this idyllic community. And he begins to suspect that there's more going on the outside, or things that people are being protected from about what's going on the outside. And I think that for me, when I'm reading this is this community that she's in it's just a facade of beauty and peacefulness and you don't get until really then when she's on those commemorative stones or plaques, what the past, what the outside, the dirty stories are, what reality really is.
Lynn. Okay.
Wait, no, I know, I forgot.
Roberta.
Roberta. I'm
Roberta.
glad you looked up
Yeah.
the Black Forest. I'm glad you look up the Black Forest. Because now I'm thinking about all our discussions that we've had up to this point. And this is an essential part in this story, because we've been talking about her search for some kind of spiritual identity or whatever. And I would say probably this is central because of the fact that it's the Black Forest. I mean, she's wandering. She is confused. I mean, she mentions guilt that she feels. She's feeling the structure, and she talks about structure. I think the whole thing is, I said in the beginning, ironic, because she finds it ironic at the end.
Yeah.
That she thought it was so beautiful. And then she realizes, why was I praising all of this? And then
Yeah.
she has to now think.
Right.
And integrate all of this.
Terry.
So that was good.
Terry, then Roberta.
All right, so Roberta, you inspired me, so I looked it up. And of course, AI knows all. And the Black Forest, both a real location in Germany and a powerful symbol, evokes a sense of mystery, darkness, and the unknown, while also representing nature, tradition, and even a sense of refuge. It's inspired countless fairy tales, legends, artistic interpretations. And then later on, I think this might be sort of what you said. In some contexts, the Black Forest is portrayed as a sanctuary, a place to escape civilization, find solace in nature. Now, that wasn't the one I wanted. The one I wanted was, it can symbolize a journey of self-discovery and transformation where one can confront their fears and emerge changed. It's so interesting.
Right.
Super interesting.
I should have.
Thought about it.
Oh, I knew it was something.
Roberta, then Judy. Go ahead.
I just think what I also read, it's the inspiration for a lot of the Grimm's fairy tales.
Right.
And I think those are not, they're sadistic and dark. And I thought that was significant to me, the connection between the Grimm's fairy tales and history.
Yeah, absolutely. Judy.
That she's a writer.
I really like the last AI comment, because you're supposed to recognize what happened. But the paragraph before she goes into normalcy, she learns about the poor Grumbox. And I don't
Wait,
think
what did you say? She learns about what?
the Grumbachs, the people that were
Oh, that's a.
property.
Oh, right.
Okay, so, I don't think she's learned anything. I don't think she has incorporated the information that she has garnered. I don't think she has verified her past with her present. And I don't respect her. I found this objectionable. I don't like her at all.
Roberta.
Sorry, Roberta.
Give her time.
I apologize to you, but I don't like it.
Can I answer?
Lynn. Lynn's gonna answer, then Elaine.
Judy, that's what we, in essence, we said that, that's why the story ends like it does. She has not come to any conclusion, really. She's dry. She's literally and mentally dry. She has not found what it is she's looking for, but she's trying. At least let's give her credit for that. She's wandering in this black forest of life, which many of us do when we're in a conflict. She's definitely in a conflict situation with herself between the spiritual and the real. Not the real.
I don't see her analyzing it. I don't see her struggling with it.
In the previous story, in the previous story, she has though.
Right, but not in this one.
Well, that's interesting. Why did she put this in the middle of the book?
We're gonna find out as we read the book. Yeah, give her time. Merle.
Hey, she does see all these beautiful things that are so ideal, but she also remembers that she jaywalked in front of a German man and he got pretty angry. And he looked at her and he knitted his brows and he said something in German. And she said that one of her friends who was German said, I bet he said to you, Ordnung muss sein. There must be order. And I think that was another one of these little metaphorical statements that, well, yeah, everything is beautiful and we have to forget the chaos that preceded it. And now there must be order. And I think she's carrying that idea with her as she lives there. So,
Roberta.
I just think there's not evidence and that people are making the assumption that she hasn't resolved anything or thought about anything. I think I think those statements are presumptuous and reading into it without evidence. And we don't know her mind. Either way, we're making guesses.
Elaine.
Okay, you have to remember that she is in Germany for a job. She is not there on vacation or, when we go on vacation and you say, oh, I'm going to France, I'm going to Germany, you look up things, you have a reason to go there. She is put there. So she has to make amends. She has to work out whatever her feelings are and sort of put them aside because she's working there. She's not allowed to be a tourist and you go to, the concentration camp or you go wherever you're allowed to be and you have your own opinion. She has to work with people and be there every day. So you sort of put you're ambiguous. You sort of put your Jewishness aside and your working aside and sort of make them mesh. And I think, agreed with whoever said, I think we're giving her our feelings. And because of what's going on now in our country, I think that we feel a Jewishness and a anxiety more than we would have felt, say, when Obama was president or whatever. And as people, we tend to sort of mish our feelings together.
Judy, then Merle.
I agree with that. I think that's very interesting. However, there are people here working jobs pretending to ignore things they shouldn't be ignoring. So I don't praise her for that. If you're working in a community or an environment that's hostile and cruel to other people, you have a responsibility. I don't care if she has a job, then she should leave the job. That's what's happening here. People are going along because it's a job. I really disrespect this. I'm sorry.
All right. Merle and then Terry.
She reminds me a little bit, the narrator of the story, of immigrants that I met along the way who are here now. They happen to live here now, but they create a little bubble where they would always talk to people who spoke their language outside of class and kind of avoided living here, really. They would just stick together with their whatever their ethnicity was, that they picked that ethnic group. She is teaching mostly American students, and there are a couple of Germans in there, and maybe she's met some friendly Germans. I think she has created a bubble for herself while she has to live there, and she's just going to forget the bad stuff while she has to live there. Because before she came there, she said to Grandma, I'm going to Germany. And she knew, and she had studied the Holocaust. She knew everything. I think she just has to make it livable for herself while she's there. So she's eating rhubarb pie and making herself feel better. I think she knows exactly what's going on.
Lynn says she doesn't know a whole lot about the Holocaust. She said that in the story. So she does, I mean, she's going there really as a blank slate, I would say, in terms of, I don't even say blank slate. I think this person is stuck. I think she is really searching for something, some sign to give her some drive to seek more of her spiritual side. And if you look at right before she stumbles on the block, on the
Markers.
go to 116. In the sunlight, bellies of floating seeds glow like fireflies. You could hike through the Black Forest every day and bike along the trees. I don't know that. My husband, a runner, would love it. Okay, she's thinking about what a life this would be. Okay. On a nearby bench, a woman watches us. She is old, older than the war. She has a magazine in her lap, one with articles, I imagine. Okay, I have a about motherhood and modern art, one with advertisements for all naturals. So, oh, I think that's not what I want. She's glorifying Germany there. Okay, go back, keep going to where she stumbles. Again, how I could live here. How I could totally live here. Why couldn't I live here? So look at her mind. She's going back and forth in her decisions, how I could write and teach and grow tomatoes and get a dog, 2 dogs, and send my kids to the international school. And there's something shiny on the pavement. All of a sudden, it intrudes into her thoughts, into what an ideal life. You know, she idealizes this life. Something glowing, sort of like the Gilded Age here. And when I bend down, I see its cobblestone-sized plaque, a brass stumbling block.
I thought that was an
She-
interesting
That
term.
is an
I just
interesting
Don't put a
term.
stumbling block before the
Stumbling, yeah,
blind.
exactly. At the
Sorry
base of
about
the
that.
residential driveway. Boy, she's a mess.
Yeah.
Judy, she's a mess.
I agree.
You know, and we've seen this all along when she visits her friend and they're talking about surrogacy and all, and you know, she's
about that.
searching for a purpose in life. I mean, this memoir, Spilt Milk, is, you know, I mean, it's all about her search and
Yeah. Just very quickly, you know, she said the old woman, older than the war, which was, you know, she's younger than I am. I don't think that's true. And you can't tell Arthur, I told you this story, but when we dropped, Jonathan did a couple of years at in Lawrence, Wisconsin, and we met the roommate's parents, and he was a war veteran. Okay. This is in, you know, 2000 and whatever. We get back in the car and Arthur says to me, he goes, what war do you think it is? Arthur goes, World War II. I go, World War II? Your dad, who was way older than all of us, was in the Korean War. What is the matter with you? I said, he's probably not even old enough for Vietnam. So we have these things in our mind. And my husband usually does not, you know, give me any, he goes, yeah, I guess you're right. I'll never forget that. I was like, What? But we only think of one war. It's just one war. There's no other wars. Merle, then Judy.
Okay. I still see her as trying to create this perfect bubble. And she's eating a piece of pie. And she says another metaphorical thing. I let a piece of pie dissolve in my mouth and try to decide if it's more sour or sweet.
There you go.
Know when you're eating something if it's sour or sweet. I think she's using this as another metaphor, her
Yeah.
whole experience there. But I think what she's going to try to do is make it as sweet as possible. I think she knows exactly what's going on, but tries to delude herself just to make it nice to stay there while she's there. That's all.
Cover over it. Judy, then Terry. Judy.
On page 118, she talks about the song that's being played in the beer stein as comfortably numb. I think that's what she is.
Comfortably numb.
Interesting.
I agree.
Very, very interesting. Terry.
Well, I think she makes more than one reference to what really went on there. She starts out the very beginning. She is watching the single channel that they have because she can't sleep. And she sees what she calls the triad when she calls her husband. One was about an Auschwitz survivor. One was about female agents with lipstick vixens gunning down unsuspecting Nazis. And one was about the Tel Aviv rendezvous in which a guileless guest shows up at a Shabbat dinner with unkosher wine. And her husband says, what is this, the Atonement Channel? So that's number one. Number two, when there was, she was going along and she said to Nadia, can we go see the synagogue? And she says, the what? And she says, temple I offer, house of worship, church for Jews. I point to the street sign at the corner, Platz der Alten Synagogue. Her face lights up with understanding, as does mine, it being understood. Then she shakes her head. The sign, she says, is pointing to where it used to be. So I think even before the plaques, there were those signs that she's kind of letting us know that this is certainly on her mind. It's not as though she's completely oblivious.
The shock, that was a surprise to me when she said, can we see the synagogue? That seems to
Right. I do want to share with you. I do Sunday morning adult enrichment. I get speakers. People caution me, don't get too much of this, too much of that. But in the past, 3 weeks, 3 different people, one trying to solicit me to bring her back here from California about the Shoah, another person who's got a book. I forget what the third one is. I get a request every. And look, I think the Holocaust is as important as the next person. I also believe there's no business like the Shoah business. It has, and I think that as survivors are dying, and we're going to reach a path where there are no survivors, it's going to become even more intense. But I find it very hard. It's a fine line for me. Even having a survivor here. So Jim Schuster, who works, he taught about the Holocaust at Carmel High School. He is a docent at the Holocaust Museum. So he helps me get a speaker every year, and we have it on the calendar. And he says to me, he goes, "Oh yeah, it's way too early." And just twice in the past, I booked someone.
Wait, I feel bad interrupting. Is Simcha here? I thought it's.
No, she's not in here.
Okay.
Thanks. Once the person flat out died, and last year's speaker had a stroke. So funny, not funny. So we have, and I'll say to him, can they stand? Can they talk for a half an hour? What's their accent like? I mean, it's Well, when I started doing this 30 years ago, I don't want to say I had my pick of the crop, but I had my pick of the crop. And as they die, I can see because oh yeah, he's Sam Harris, this one, that one, they spoke for us. But it puts me in a precarious situation. How much can you all take? Elaine and then Lynn.
Okay, I'm going back to my original premise, and I think because of what is going on now, the people are, and the word Nazi, I had not heard the word Nazi in the news 5 years ago. I mean, when it became the anniversary of the liberation, they said, but now it's almost always in the news. And I think we as Jews, whether we're very religious or not, we are very aware of the dangers. And we have never been. And I think therefore, we are looking at everything with different eyes than we looked a few years ago. And I think in some ways, it's good to look that way. And in some ways, it's very dangerous.
Yeah, yeah.
And we become sort of paranoid of what is happening in our lives.
Judy, then Lynn. Go ahead, Judy.
What I'm afraid of and what this story illuminated my fear is that while we feel that way, because my father fought in the war, I had family that died in the war. Both my great grandparents had 12 brothers and sisters in the concentration camps. I'm afraid that the generation maybe beneath us, I don't remember what they're called, the Gen Z, Gen X, whatever. I don't think they have the same fear that we have when we're Nazi. And that's what worries me about this chapter. I don't want to frighten them to death, but they have to know the truth. And if history isn't being taught, they don't know the truth. And she's seeing all these signs where she asked for a temple. There's no temple. I'm afraid. I'm afraid for our country. I'm afraid for our children, our grandchildren, if they don't remember this. And I don't want them to be normally grieving for it, but I want them to recognize it. And I'm afraid in this story, I recognized that she doesn't really understand.
Say that again, Judy.
Doesn't
I
understand.
don't think
Doesn't
she
understand.
really understands it. She doesn't understand the problems. For me.
Right. Well, listen, we're all older than she is, so we bring a different perspective. Lynn, did you have something then,
Yeah, I
Sandy?
wanted to say, I think at this very period in time, and I can see why you are having trouble with this. What is it that we want to show the world? Do we want to show the world that we are human beings and others helped us and we should show that part of the Holocaust? We want a survivor to talk about that experience in the war. What is it that's required of us at this point in our life when there's so much anti-Semitism?
Yeah. I think,
What will touch the sympathy of people?
yeah, Lynn, I think you're absolutely right. What's my mission and vision? Why am I doing this? And I need help. I need to think about that.
Well, what I've noticed in books that we pick for our book club and movies that are streaming now, there are some wonderful movies streaming now about non-Jews helping Jewish
Yes.
kids.
Yeah.
I think
Righteous
those are
Gentiles.
really important
Yeah,
at this period of time.
Yeah.
So that's what we have to sort out.
yeah, I agree. Sandy, go ahead. I unmuted you.
I've been to Germany 4 times. I thought I'd never go to Germany when I was younger. I thought I'd never go there. I only did it the first time to help an Israeli friend. But I've been there now several times and I felt very welcome and I understood the story. I think Germany is a better friend to us than almost any other country in Europe. There's such anti-Semitism in Hungary and other countries there right now. And there's anti-Semitism here in this country. There are Nazis here in this country, and I don't mean German Nazis, American Nazis. We have to be aware, but I'm not worried about Germany. I think Germany, they have paid a very big price for taking the Syrians, and they have thousands and thousands of Syrians. And from what our friends in Germany say, they are so sorry that they took them in and helped them. The Muslims are the big problem now in Europe. But we have to teach our children, and we have to be strong, and don't be afraid. I hear people say, I'm afraid of this, I'm afraid of it. Don't be afraid. Be strong. Every one of us needs to be strong now. Thank you for listening.
I also want to, on page 114, Emily tells us how the German population is in serious decline, how deaths are outpacing births. There's generous maternity leave, she says, and a new incentive that provides men with a year of paid paternity leave for every child they father. A year, I shout, fully paid? She laughs at my enthusiasm. When I was in Korea, they're out there, our guide told us the exact same thing, that deaths are, outpacing births, that young women don't want to get married, have children. They want to have it all, but they want to have a career. And I find that, these are both two countries, Germany and Korea, which are financially successful, have a lot of exports. We can't get into the tariffs. So I thought that whole thing, the birth rate thing is, absolutely fascinating. Merle.
I keep going, when I reread this story, I keep going back to the scene with the grandmother. And when the grandmother doesn't respond in words, but just makes a hand gesture, she interprets that hand gesture to mean move on. Let's not even talk about the Holocaust. Just move on and go on your trip. And it's a summer job. It's just a summer teaching job. And I think, that's maybe one of the messages of the story, that while she's putting herself in the bubble and protecting herself from thoughts of the past, maybe she's agreeing with her grandmother, let's just move on when we go to Germany.
Interesting. Barb.
This story,
A little ambiguity in this story, though, that
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
discuss. Yeah. Mhm.
I just realized as we're reading this passage here that this book is not linear. This is before she has her children, before she has the experiences that we all have read about so far, and has experienced all of these, some of the abuse and some of the things that she discussed in previous chapters. So she's kind of an innocent in this chapter,
that's true.
and it's not linear.
It's an
Excellent point, Barb. Not linear. So she hasn't got there, Terry.
when you bring that up, I mean, at one point as I was reading it, I was thinking, wait a minute, is this the same book that we've been reading? I got a little confused because I haven't looked at it in a while.
style of it.
And then I sort of flipped back and went, oh, yeah, I know who this woman is, but you're right. It struck me, wait, she doesn't have children yet. You're absolutely right.
Barb said to me at Friday night, she goes, I'm liking this book more. I mean, that first chapter almost put us off. And I was like, oh, it's gonna be long. And some of the other chapters have resonate, the surrogacy one and those. So we're gonna see where it takes us. Sue Roberts.
And don't you think that grandma represents my parents' generation
He has a brain tumor.
of absolute hatred, and would have nothing to do not buy a German car, do not go to Germany, do not speak. And that was really the thought of my parents' generation. So I think that becomes, either metaphorically or actually, part of the process of this. She's listened to this. She's been brainwashed. And now here she goes. And this is all she knows from one set of lens. And now she goes and it's lovely. And now she starts learning about how Germany has, in fact, it's not just the flower boxes, but it is how, in fact, they have addressed their past
Excellent,
and
excellent.
and created laws
Mhm.
to be able to say this is what we did. And if anybody dares repeat something like this on our soil, you're getting it.
Excellent.
Yeah, and so that's part of it.
Yeah.
Part of her journey.
Terry.
Well, that reminded me, the first time we took a mission to Israel, our guide was driving a Mercedes. And we said to him, how can you be driving a German car? And he said, the British are much worse than the Germans. The Germans are good. The British are bad.
I mean,
So interesting.
if you're in Israel, there's a lot of Mercedes, there's a lot of German cars, there was a lot of reparations.
Exactly, and still are.
And still are. And I think I shared that my son-in-law, his grandparents were German, and he could get German citizenship, and he and Lee Tom decided to get German citizenship for their kids. And 10 years ago, I would have said, oh, but now I'm like, okay,
Why did they decide to do that?
because they can't. And to have another passport is always, in these fragile times. Sue Wellick, Finland, then Judy.
Okay, so you're talking about German cars. I'll go back many, many years again to when my husband was in the service and we were living in England. He was stationed at an Air Force base. And when the high holidays came, Jewish service people were invited to local people's homes for dinner and then to go to synagogue with them. So we accepted an invitation from a couple and we got to their house. And my husband at the time, we had a Volkswagen, which he couldn't tell his father he had. We were living in England, so his father was in the United States. He didn't have to know what kind of car we had. But it was the cheapest, we had no money, and it was the cheapest car we could buy, and it just made sense for us. And so we get to these people's homes, we have a lovely dinner. They are Holocaust survivors.
Wow, my gosh.
So
In
my
Germany.
husband says, and it's, I don't know, can we drive you to the synagogue? And they say, sure. So we go outside and the man sees our Volkswagen and he starts cursing at us. And there is no way he's getting in that car. And I'm surprised at you, a Jewish couple having a Volkswagen. And we did go to the synagogue and the men and women I had to sit by myself upstairs, and
You'll never forget that.
I'll never forget it. And he wouldn't speak to us.
But that was 1,000 years ago.
That was in 1961.
Yeah. Nowadays, the couple would say, oh, you have a Volkswagen. I'm not crazy about it, but I'll get in.
Lynn and then Judy.
Okay, I've been trying to understand also the parts about her teaching. The parts about her teaching, writing, and the use of language. And she makes a statement about that. It's really hard to put things into words sometimes. I would say the Holocaust is probably the hardest thing for people to verbalize what happened there. And the grandmother's at the point in her life where she's can't talk about it anymore. But on the bottom of page, almost bottom of page 97, Stahl, she got sounds of Stahl, write about writers who might be interested in ending his memoir. And enter the freshly minted MFA in need of a job. So that's her. Okay. Sal, describing Sal, had an Arabic accent. I didn't know, he seemed disappointed that I didn't know anything about Aleppo, which we just read about. Aren't you Jewish? He asked. I am, I said. I didn't tell him I had resented having to attend Hebrew school in adolescence, that my bat mitzvah had proved memorable mostly because a friend made out with the boy I liked, how I was still waiting to believe in God. And she tucks that important sentence into this. Instead, I offered assurances. I'm a diligent researcher, I said. Quick study. And Barb, you're right. The rest of the book is her researching into trying to find if she's gonna believe in God or if she's not. So
Spirituality.
I thought that was an excellent point.
Judy.
I was just gonna make a comment about Germany offering their expats access to the country. And I have a great aunt who was from Germany, and her parents were from Germany, and she took them up on it. Because I said to her, why? And she said, because all of my relatives will now get free education if they want it. They're offering free education. If you want to do that in your.
Right. The whole thing is very fascinating. We need to wrap up. I have a question for you. I'm gone in July. If we started back up in August, would that be good?
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah,
Yes?
yes.
yes, we don't have a choice.
Well, no.
We want you, yeah.
Well, no, if you're not here, then we can start in September, but I think if we're all here, well, let's go for August. So the first Wednesday back, and I think I already put it on I know I already put it on the calendar, is August 6th. Okay. All right.
We're gonna do boy in
Traveling in
blue.
August.
What?
Anyone
The next
else
one,
know?
Boy in blue, right. So as always, we record and then we give you a written test if you're kidding. I know that Alice is gone and Izzy couldn't make it, but I'll send them the recordings and I actually think I can see the views. I can see people do that. So it's good seeing everyone. Sunday, July 13th. Rabbi Moffick is talking about Beyond Pharaoh and the Jewish response to the
14th. Sunday the 14th.
of July.
Of July or September?
July.
Oh, I thought you said September.
July. It's July, I was gonna say, the 13th, yeah. The Jewish response in the Civil War to slavery. So I think it's going to be very interesting. It's a new topic and there's a book that's connected to it. So I hope I see you all then. It's good to see everyone. And until I see you again, bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thank you.